Thanks for joining me today. We wonder when we start homeschooling, what is the best philosophy? What is the best style? Actually, we don't even start with that because we don't know there's a variety of philosophies and styles. So the questions when I started homeschooling were many, and they included, how do I know what is the best way to do this for my family? How do I do schooling at home? Where do I find the information? Is there one website to go that has all the information on it? Wouldn't that be perfect? There's not. It's also overwhelming. My child will be ruined if I choose the wrong things. Will my child fall behind in school? And the ultimate, what if my child fails? In the history of homeschooling, has any child ever failed? I don't think so. But these are really big and they're very serious questions. And I'm not meaning to discount the seriousness of it because I know I was there when I started. What I've learned is we can manage this. It will be okay. And we're indoctrinated to feel like only the professionals can do this, and we're not teachers. We haven't gone to teacher college, so who are we to think that we can do this? And we have to have vast amounts of knowledge in order to be able to teach our children, and we're indoctrinated to all this through our own schooling. And so when we start to homeschool, we want the best for our kids. We do. We want them to have the best experience. We want them to have a solid foundation under them so that when they go into their adulthood, they can be successful, right? That's all we want for them, is to be happy and successful. So these are really big decisions to make, and they're really big questions to get answers to. And so as I started investigating homeschooling for my own daughter, I learned that there are so many different philosophies and styles to homeschooling. I mean, who knew? Because when you go to school, it's just school, right? You get your books and you sit in the classroom and the teacher lectures and you take notes and you have a quiz. What else can there be? Well, actually, there are a number. There are a few of the most common styles or philosophies. Both the words are used interchangeably. There are a few of the major ones, but in the end, most families fall under what is called eclectic, where they've tried out a number of different philosophies, and they try out Charlotte Mason, and they're like, oh, we like this about Charlotte Mason, don't like that, so we're going to forget about that part, but we're going to keep this and we're going to go on. And now we're going to try out some Montessori. And they try out some Montessori and they like this and they keep it and they throw all that away. And then they duct tape together what works for their family. And what works for my family isn't necessarily what's going to work for your family, because you're a group of individuals and we're a group of individuals, and we're people with our own interests and our strengths, and it's individualized. So what are some of those philosophies and how do we choose the best? Well, the first one that I came across is school at home, which is basically a boxed curriculum, and it can literally be a box that contains resources for the 8 KLAs. So you've got math, science, language arts, another language or culture, music and art, health and PE, and design and technology, and whatever the other one is. So they're not thinking, oh, social sciences. So it can have a book for each one of those and the resources that go with it and the workbooks and da-da-da-da, boom, here you go. Here's a piece of paper, tells you at 8 o'clock you're going to do this, at 8:45 you're going to do that, 9:30, and it lays out the whole schedule for you. And it is literally do, right down the list. Homeschool in a box, there you go. Those are available. Next, we have the classical education. This has been around in one form or another since about sometime in the Middle Ages, and it's based on two systems. The first during the primary years is called the trivium, and that is the basis of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The rhetoric tends to come later primary years. The grammar starts at the beginning and the logic falls in the middle. And then in secondary years, it's the quadrium, which is arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And this is numbers, numbers in space, numbers in time, and numbers in space and time is how that applies. And so it's laid out very specifically. These are the things that we cover in the primary years. These are the things that we cover in the secondary years. A lot of their curriculum, most of their curriculum is history, literature, and language based, and then in the primary years, and then in the secondary years, it goes more into the maths and the sciences. This is a solid education. Like I said, it's been around from Middle-aged times right up to modern times. Some schools run this way, more private schools than public. But it's solid. It is not child-led though. It is hierarchical in that the teachers or the parents are laying out the curriculum. Then into the late 1800s, so we were into the Industrial Revolution. We had to have workers for the factories, and so we needed them to have at least a basic understanding of maths and writing and reading. And so some people started doing research into the best ways to educate children. And three in particular educational styles that were developed at that time, more for schools than for homeschooling, except for one, are still prevalent today. And while there are schools that use these methods, they've also become quite common in the homeschooling world. So the first one I'm going to share with you is Charlotte Mason. She lived in the late 1800s and early 1900s, and her focus actually was on schooling children from home. And she was one of the first big advocates for homeschoolers. She written a whole curriculum. She has a 6-book collection that's still available today. And she would mail out monthly periodicals to her subscribers to support them in schooling their children at home. And the basis of her curriculum and her beliefs was she advocated for a wide and liberal curriculum, liberal in the sense of the liberal arts. She considered that children were born as whole persons and needed to be respected as such rather than just as vessels to be filled. And her education programs are very child-centered and again focus a lot on the liberal arts. Another educational system that comes out of this time is the Steiner method. It's also referred to as Waldorf, and there's a whole story to that. I'll let you research it yourself. But Steiner was the man's name who developed this program, and he also established the philosophy and the belief, which is called anthroposophy. Yeah, it's a really weird word. Anthroposophy. There we go. I learned a new word today. So his focus was to develop the intellectual, artistic, and practical skills in an integrated and holistic way. So he wasn't interested in a school day broken up into individual subjects and we do this and then we do this and then we do this. He was more incorporating it all into one integrated system. He believes that development in the children follows 3 distinct 7-year developmental stages. And so the Steiner educational philosophy has 3 developmental stages for a span of 3 years. So he's actually looking at 0 to about 21 years old for his whole educational, which if you include university, that fits. His focus is to awaken the physical, behavioral, emotional, cognitive, social, and spiritual aspect of each child. And then we also have Marie, and he was also English. Charlotte Mason was English. She was from Wales. We also have Montessori, which is founded by Marie Montessori, a scientist and child development expert in Italy, again in the late 1800s. And her scientific research helped her develop the system, which is child-centered again and based on science. She acknowledges that children are naturally eager for knowledge, and in an encouraging and supportive environment, they will learn. She focuses on the development of the child physically, socially, emotionally, and cognitively. Again, providing for a proper learning environment for their developmental stages. So, one of the things that I found really interesting as I was looking into this is that the three out of the late 1800s are all child-centered, and they were intended to be developed by schools. And so the schools that were being developed in response to the Industrial Revolution at the beginning were child-centered. And somewhere along the way, we've lost that. And that's really the role that homeschooling has taken on, is that we want our children educated. We're acknowledging that they're enthusiastic about learning. We just want it child-centered. We don't want them institutionalized and treated as part of the industrial mechanism. They're not engines on a conveyor belt to just be They are individuals with their own individual developmental stages, milestones, strengths, and weaknesses, and work with that. That's all we want. So that's what I found. Those are some of the big philosophies that are out there. There are more, but those are some of the big ones. The other one that I'm going to touch on is unschooling. Unschooling comes from John Holt, who defined it as the learning which in no way resembles schooling and doesn't necessarily happen at home. And he created this term directly in response to the word homeschooling, which implies school at home. And in the 60s and 70s, when he was at his prime as a homeschool advocate, he was saying what I said, that we've gotten away from the children being the primary focus of the system in our schooling, and it needs to change. And so he advocated for unschooling. Any of these styles that I've mentioned and anything except for the boxed curriculum can actually be done in a homeschooling way, where it's child-led, where it's the child's interests that are the focus, where it's them as a whole person is the focus. So what is the best philosophy out of these that I've shared with you? All of them, or none of them. Because it's not, there is no one blanket answer that applies to every child in every family. There just isn't. So what we have to do as homeschoolers is spend the time first educating ourselves, deschooling it's called. We need to learn about these philosophies, and we read about them, we go, ooh, that one sounds really good, let's give it a go. Now we've started the science experiment. We've formulated a theory. This system will work for us. And now we're going to try that theory. We're going to test it and see if it works. And we're going to take notes, and we're going to observe our children, and we're going to see. And honestly, you might try it a month, you might try it 6 months, you might try it for a year, you might try it for 3 years. And then go, okay, we've done as much as we can do with this. Now we need to do something different. Or, like I said at the beginning, you might say, ooh, we really like this aspect of it. This isn't working so much, so let's keep this part and try something else. As I said earlier, a lot of homeschooling families are eclectic. Okay, they might have started out Charlotte Mason, they might have started out unschooling, but they've morphed and grown and evolved over time, and now they're more eclectic. There's no right or wrong answer. It really, so long as it's working for you and your children, that's all that matters. And so the best homeschooling philosophy or style is the one that works for you. It's the one that works for your kids. So it's not marriage when you choose one. It's not a lifetime commitment. So try them all out. See what works. See what doesn't. Allow yourselves to adapt and grow. Give it a go. And then always have it in the back of your mind that we can always do something different next week, next month, next year, whenever. But the most important thing is have fun. There's so much to be said for just having fun and including laughter and giggles every day in your day. Yeah? So I'm going to thank you for joining me today. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.